Friday means we're into some nonsense. This Friday is air travel nonsense. We've all taken flights if we're on projects. There's a lot of business travel, and it brings out the weirdest in all of us. We're going to talk about that fun today. Everyone thinks they're a pro traveler, and then the lines form, and it's a free for all, right? So every flight becomes a social experiment with strangers stuck in a metal tube 30,000 feet in the air. And, they think these things seem simple, but then they aren't. Right? So we're going to talk about some of the funniest things about travel, and this is going to be funny because it's true. So fasten your seatbelts and get ready for some emotional turbulence. Let's get into the nonsense. I've got 9 of them here. The first is security line shenanigans. We haven't even gotten into the airport and we already have nonsense. Then there's the boarding group Hunger Games, which we all can relate to. Then once we get in, we're fighting for the overhead bin space in the overhead bin Olympics. We then pick our seatmates in the seatmate lottery. And then they show us that in-flight safety video that nobody watches. Finally, we have the moral dilemma of do we put our seat back or not, and how do we do it? There's negotiating for the snacks, the mysterious bathroom rules that I still don't understand after taking hundreds of flights, and finally, the race to stand when the plane lands. Hopefully, you will enjoy the fun. I'm sure I missed some other topics, but these are the ones I came up with. First, security line. We forget every rule we've ever learned when we get in the line, and people forget to take off their jacket. They don't know how to pull things out. They have giant liquids or water bottles. There's the guy who's always asking, do I need to take my laptop out? You've got the bin hoarders. These are my favorite. They take like 6 trays, right? One full 3-foot tray for their watch and one for one shoe, one for the other. It makes no sense. People suddenly discovered liquids they didn't know they had holding up the whole line, and it moves really slow until it's your turn, and then all of a sudden you feel under pressure, and everybody becomes a part-time contortionist once they get all their stuff back to repack quickly. Or you have the person who stands there slowly repacking while everybody waits behind them with all of the bags queued up. So we have just made it into the airport and we already have shenanigans. Then we wait several hours and the boarding groups come in. My favorite part, it hasn't even started boarding and there's already the people who are the gate lice, right? I like that one. Gathering before the boarding begins. Because boarding really does reveal the true hierarchy of humanity. You always have the group 1 people, who walk in like they own the plane. Then you have the people who are cautiously optimistic. As you start getting later in the groups, they start bargaining because they know they're not going to get overhead space. And group 9 should just be prepared for disappointment. And, look, the bin race really begins before anyone steps on the plane. That's what this is all about. People don't want to check their luggage, so they take these giant suitcases and try to shove them in the overhead bin. Pro tip, I use a duffel bag. You can shove it in anywhere. And then you get to the overhead bin Olympics and you attempt impossible luggage maneuvers, trying to make bags that don't fit. You've got the person who rotates the bag in many different ways. You've got the shovers who just shoves in, believing force is the answer. That's always fun. Somehow the flight attendants, I mean, this is their job, but it's fantastic to watch how they're able to shove 7 pieces of luggage in like Tetris and not have an inch of space in between. My favorite is the person who puts one coat across the entire overhead bin, taking up the space. And then the final bin is a diplomatic negotiation. And I like to board early because it's fun to watch and see some of the nonsense occur. But then you're waiting when you get on first for who your seatbelt will be. What will destiny assign you? You might get the chatty Cathy who wants to tell you everything. You might get the armrest dominator who shoves their arms into both sides of the armrest, claiming their territory immediately. There's always the person that brings the interesting snack, such as a tuna sandwich. Don't forget about the sleeper who may or may not wind up on your shoulder or even better in your lap. You've got the over-organizer that unpacks their entire life. And then you always get the baby wild card. And generally this happens on flights that you want to try to sleep on. So who will you get in the lottery? Then they show you the video, which is the most ignored blockbuster in aviation history. You got one guy watching it like it's a premiere of the hottest movie. My favorite part is they show you how to use a seatbelt, which is fantastic because it just assumes that nobody knows how to buckle up. I like when they say the unlikely event of a water landing, and that's when people are like, Wait, why would you say that? Does that mean that's going to happen? The life vest instructions feel somewhat optimistic. And then the oxygen mask is always kind of cheerful, right? It's going to drop in front of you and put it on yourself first. Then you're in the flight, and there's the ethical question. Do I recline or do I not? And you've got the gentle recliner who tries to be polite and they kind of move it back. You've got the person who just shoves it back as fast as possible. That's usually when I'm working on my laptop or have a drink in there. You've got the knee bumps, which are your passive aggressive messages to them to tell them, hey, I'm here, stop going back. You can do like the 1 inch at a time, but that kind of doesn't work. That's actually my technique. I don't want to shove it back, so I do it like a little bit at a time and hope they don't notice. But they probably do. And then, generally you have to follow the person in front of you. So if the person in front of you reclines back, I feel like then you have to so that you have some space, and then you get the whole domino effect on the plane. And they come by with the snack cart. It's a diplomatic event. You get to negotiate what do you want? Pretzels, cookies. It's a tough debate. Of course, you always get the person who asks for, one of each or several of each. You've got the soda can detonating under pressure. The ice distribution feels strategic, right? Generally, you get 90% ice and 10% liquid. Sometimes you miss the cart because it comes by when you're asleep. And the snack ambassadors are really what the flight attendants are. But for some reason, you spend all this money and you feel like a little bag of pretzels somehow makes it all worth it. Then there's airplane bathrooms, which I try to avoid as much as possible. I'll take an 8-hour flight and try to almost have it as a contest to try to not go or maybe only go once. Because, first the lock is like a puzzle from the escape room. You have to like hold something and switch something and push something up. You're not really sure how the sink works. You put your hand under it, you push a button, the water comes out for a second, then it comes back. You ever tried going to the bathroom during turbulence, especially as a man standing? It's a fantastic game. Once everybody exits, there's kind of that look on their face. Um, the flush button is always louder than expected. It's surprisingly loud. It's quite scary. And then you start questioning where everything goes, right? Is it sprinkling over the people below them? Like what is it? You don't want to ask about the floor. The line always forms at the worst times. My favorite is having the seat right outside the bathroom, by the way. That is the worst seat because everybody's standing in line and they're all staring at you. So that's fantastic. So that's the bathroom. Then we finally land, and this is my favorite, and I will tell you I am guilty of this as well because I can't sit for long periods of time. Soon as the wheels touch down, instincts take over. If you listen carefully, you'll hear all the people undoing their seatbelts. Then you get the aisle standers who just pop up. You've got the window seat people who are trapped. I hate being on the window seat when that happens, especially if you have a slow person. You've got the sprinter who tries to leapfrog the rows before people get up. That's always my favorite person. People grabbing their bags even before the sign is off or before the plane gets to the gate. You've got that slow shuffle sometimes, especially when you're in a rush. It feels like it takes forever, and then the starting gun is when the door opens, and then everybody kind of rushes out. So look, there's a lot of nonsense with travel. It's absurd, but that's kind of what makes it fun. We're all united with the same shared nonsense, again, being in that tin can. So you got to take humor as your best carry-on item and think about it as you got some really good stories to tell, especially if you capture some good Karen videos. That always makes it fun. So hopefully your seatmate is quiet and your overhead bin is empty and you have a good boarding group. Safe travels both emotionally and literally, and thanks for watching.